Hey there everybody, Tim here from Lessons on the Web, and today we are writing a song together. So to do this, you have to know kind of a bit about music theory already, but if not, I'll walk you through it and you can do your best. If you don't know anything about music theory, feel free to check out my music theory playlists, which I will link to in the description, and hopefully I will remember to put a little tag somewhere around to let you know where to find it. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it and let's write our first song for many of us, or maybe, or at least our first song together. So let's get started. Okay, so here we're back at staff pad, and we are going to start our song. So here we go. So we have a bunch of decisions to make. The first decision is, well, depends on what order you want to do them in. But one of our first decisions is what time signature do we need? Or do we want? So you can select through any of the time signatures that we know of: 4/4, 2/4, 3/4, or if you're more advanced, you know about 6/8, 9/8, and those compound time signatures. So 4/4 might be better if we're trying to make like a march song or maybe an upbeat kind of song. 3/4 or 6/8 might be better if we're trying to write some kind of dance. So I think just to start out, since this is the first one, we're just going to do 4/4. Keep it nice and easy. Okay, so one of the next things that we need to do, decide what key we should write our song in. Remember that there's different keys telling you what notes are sharp or flat throughout the song. It also kind of shifts what notes will be centered in the song. So if you're in the key of C major, you're going to be centered around the C major triad and, just around C in general. So how about, since this is our first one, we're going to stick with C major, 0 sharps, 0 flats, and that way that helps avoid some confusion. Okay, so here we go. Now that we have everything set, we have, the staff set, everything is set up, time signature, key signature, we're going to write in, what do you think? Well, we should probably do the harmony. So if you don't know what harmony is from my music theory courses, it's when you read notes up and down. So things like chords are harmony. So what we're going to do first, now you can write your harmony or your melody first. We're going to do our harmony first. This helps fill in the notes in the song and helps give it a lot more color and a lot more great sound. So one of the things we have to think about is, since we picked a major key, then chances are a lot of our chords will be major, but they don't all have to be. So we have to make little decisions along the way in terms of what kind of chord we need to use and where to use it. So we're in C major, so I think a great choice for our first chord is a C major chord. So I can either write it like this, or we have a couple of options. I can do it as what we call an arpeggio in quarter notes. And it would sound, like obviously you have the whole note chord. I forgot to play it first, but it would just go ba. You would hit it all for all 4 beats. This, might give it a little bit more of a rhythm to it, even though it's very simple rhythm. Hopefully you can hear that. Let me try that again. So there we go. Or, there's a bunch of other things that we can do. So we could do maybe like the bottom of the chord, the first note, and then the top 2 notes, and the bottom, and then the top. So notice how we're still using the same chord. We still have the C major chord. You know that, hopefully, maybe not, is the notes C, E, and G. Those are just the notes that make up the C major chord. And notice how we still have those notes, but we've changed up the order to give it a different kind of sound. That might be good as like an introduction, or maybe some kind of, song where you're walking along or something. Bum, 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 bum. It has more of a moving forward motion than just the flat chord did, the whole note chord. But it's just a little bit different. So we have a bunch of different things we can choose from. Another thing we can do is, and there's tons of different things, but I'll just show you a few. We could even do it as eighth notes. Or if that'll even work. I didn't think so. You got to draw these ones down. There we go. There we go. So now we have. So we'll kind of decide on which one we want to do. So do we want to do the 8th note one, da 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 da, the one I just did, or do you want to do the broken chord where you play the bottom note, bum 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 bum, or do you want to hit just a whole note chord and hold it for that, or do you want to do it as quarter notes? So it's all up to you, and you want to make your decision based on how fast you want your song to go. Do you want it to be a slower song, or is it important to have chords, you know, right on the beat, right in the beginning of the measure, or do you want something that moves along a little bit? And of course you can use all sorts of different rhythms, so long as you're filling out the harmony, which is really the notes that make up the chord. So let's just stick with what we have here. That makes it quite a bit easier. I'm just going to take a little, not necessarily break, but I just going to take a look at the chat and make sure everybody is good to go on this. Okay. Perfect. Okay, now I got everything up all at once. Okay, so back to business. So now that we have our, our bass line, actually, I'll tell you what, let's fill in a couple more measures. So one thing we want to do is we want to decide on our next chord. And you want to say, okay, do we want a major chord or a minor chord next? If you know anything about chord progressions, some good major chords to do next would be like F major, that's what we call the 4 chord, or the subdominant. Or you have G major, the dominant chord, that would also be good. Or if you wanted a minor chord, D minor, what we call the supertonic, I know it's way over some of our heads, chord, or maybe the submediant chord, which is the 6th chord, which is an A minor chord. So just make the decision, major or minor, and I'm going to make the decision now since I'm walking you through it. We're just going to do another major chord. So we're going to do the 4 chord, which, by the way, if you don't know what I mean, it's the 4th note of the scale. So if you have the C major scale, the notes C, D, E, and F. F is the 4th note, and we're building a triad on it. So here we go. So actually, since I am repeating the same pattern, let's see. The wonders of computers, the only problem is, there we go, that the icons are a little bit different when I have this plugged in. But okay, so what we're going to do, all I have to do is move that over to F. And hey, take a look. We know that the F major chord, maybe not, maybe you don't know that, is made up of the notes F, A, and C. So here we have F, A, C, A, and then coming back down to A again. So we're going to make another one right here, but this time we're going to go to G major, another major chord. So I picked the next chord, and obviously if you're charting this out on written paper, you'll have to redraw all of the notes up to their proper chords, but with staff pad or any kind of tool, you can copy and paste your work and then move it up or down, which makes things a ton easier for sure. And then the last chord we'll do for right now, actually I think I have it saved, copied already, is back to the 1 chord. So one thing, a tip for you, is to write what chord we're using for each one. So C major, a lot of times if you just write capital C, that stands for C major. And then we have F major. I'm just writing this out though, just for us today. And this helps keep track, especially in the beginning if you're not used to analyzing chords right away. This helps keep track of what chords you're using for each measure. So now we need a melody for our 4 measures, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the beginning. And one thing I recommend you do on the keyboard is play the chord you're doing with your left hand. So you play C, E, and G for this first measure all at once, just as the whole note chord we mentioned in the beginning. So you hit that all at once, and then try to, with your right hand, come up with a melody. That's how I recommend you do that. If you see my improvisation video I put up on YouTube that goes over really more in depth on how to do this with the melody. You know, you want to, a safe bet is to pick chord tones. So what I mean by that are notes that belong to the chord. So if we have C, E, and G, if I pick any of these, so long as they're, oops, so long as they're all part of the chord, they're going to sound good. They're not going to sound the most interesting. So let me maybe, oops, get up a little bit more. Here we go. There we go. So we have a little bit of a melody here. We can change around some of the notes. You can play with some of them to see if they sound better, but just one of the beginner's tips is to just pick notes that belong to the chord, and that's just kind of a safe bet on how to get it to sound good. Of course, you can mess with the rhythms too. Like I could put, you know, maybe, I don't know why I did that one again. Maybe I can make one of them a half note, so not bad. It doesn't sound, you know, the most exciting thing in the world, but it definitely sounds like a song you could play and is pleasing to the ear. So here we go. One thing that music likes to do is repeat patterns of music, especially in melody. So you'll either have like a snippet of melody that's one measure, it's usually 2 measures or 4 measures. And what you'll do is they'll have that again, except they'll change it a little bit. So I'll tell you what, actually what we'll do first is this. We'll make a second half to this little phrase here. So we have G, E, C, and then we're going to come up with just like a little bit of a melody here for the second measure. We're going to have, what I'm basically saying is that we're having a 2 measure group, and we have a first half and second half. So we're doing the second half here. So here we go. Here's what we have so far. Again, I just picked chord tones. So if my chord is F, A, or C, I'm going to have F, A, or C up there. You can obviously select the order or the rhythm, but here we go. Obviously, we need a melody now for the second half. So my point I was making is that it's very common in music to have 2 measure groupings, and then you repeat that, and sometimes you can move that up or down, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to copy these 2 measures that I've highlighted. Oops, I accidentally pasted. Try that again. Copy, paste. Now here's what I mean by moving up, right? So I had a C major chord before. Well, now I have a G major chord down there, so I'm going to move this to where it would fit G major, and there we go. So now I have the notes D, B, and G. And if you're wondering, like, oh, how would I know what kind of, you know, what notes belong to the chord or not? That takes practice, but that's why you write down, you know, what chord you're using below. And then you can write, I also recommend, maybe especially in the beginning, you know, writing down what notes make up that chord. So G, B, and D. So if you're a beginner, that might be what you want to do, obviously in better handwriting than I have. So let's see what we have so far. So remember, I had 2 measure grouping of a melody, and you know, I had a rhythm and notes to that, and what I did is I copied it and then moved it to fit the chord, and it actually helps create a little bit of a sequence, which sounds really nice. There you go. Shouldn't sound too bad. Should actually sound very pleasing. Maybe not the best thing in the world or most exciting, but here's what we'll do. We'll liven it up a little bit. So what we'll do is we're going to copy all this. We're going to paste it. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to write in my chords. Remember that if I just have a right here, capital C, that's C major, F major, G major, C major. I'm going to keep the same chords as I had before, but now we're going to change it around a little bit and spice it up and, you know, just modify it a little bit. So we can do that a couple ways. You can modify the pitches up and down, or the rhythms, or a little bit of both. That's up to you. So what we'll do is I'm going to change this G into 2 eighth notes. 2 eighth notes to G. It's going to go bum, 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 bum. Unlike before, where it was just like bum, bum, bum. So just changing it ever so slightly. And I'm going to change this rhythm too. I'm going to change it from a half note to, hopefully I can get this right, sometimes the dotted quarters. Yeah, there we go. So a dotted quarter to an eighth. So same notes, pitch-wise, I've just modified the rhythm. Remember that whatever rhythm you choose, it has to fit whatever time signature you're in. So it has to add up to 4 beats. Okay, I'm going to change this pitch-wise to a C. I'm going to change this to an F. Why not? You know, now this time instead of altering the rhythm, I altered the pitch to be a little bit different, but still matching the same kind of pattern we had before. And let's see. Now I'm going to add another note to the mix. Make those eighth notes. And now I've altered the pitch up and down. I've added a note. And I have altered the rhythm, which will have good results. And then how about I just change this to a whole note. That'll give it a final sounding. If you ever want your song to sound like it's over, you figure out what key you're in, obviously. So if you're in C major, you take that chord, C major chord, and you just play a whole note on what we call the root of the chord, which is the name of the chord. So if you're in C major, it'll be a C. Makes sense. If you're in G major, it'll be a G. D major, it will be a D. So let's see what our song sounds like. It should be sounding a little bit better. And then you always want to play it back and check for, you know, any corrections you might want to make. Not bad, I would say. Pretty good for a first song, you know, ever. So what I'm going to do is we have some options. We can keep going, or, you know, I can finish the song. If I'm finishing the song, we need to pick what's called a bar line, or you can draw, obviously if you're doing this on paper, you'll have to draw the bar line. So we can do a final, you know, that's the double bar line at the very end. That ends our piece completely. You have a bunch of other ones. I have to click on it correctly though. You can do a repeat end. That's like you'll repeat the entire thing after that. A repeat start you don't want to use there. That's like where you're repeating back to. So if you wanted to repeat back to only the middle of the song, you would use that. And then the double is really just the end of a single section. Excuse me. So if I was just ending that section and then continuing, I would use that. And then the single is just the regular one. So I'm going to wrap it up here. This has been Tim from Lessons on the Web. Thanks as always for listening. More great lessons on the way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks as always. If you learned something, give this video a thumbs up. So thanks as always for listening, and I'll talk to you later on. Thanks.